Okay, I've been lurking and commenting on this sub for a while, and always wanted to post this, but was always too nervous to. Since reading a recent post by you/Salty Bugler, I've decided I should share my stories about my little sister. We'll call her Diana here, for safety reasons. A bit of backstory: my little sister has Down's syndrome. If you're not aware what DIS is, here is some info on it. From my understanding about DIS, many people with it are on the autistic spectrum. My sister is considered high-functioning autistic as well as having DIS. Okay, here are the stories. Our mom had tons of difficulties with her pregnancy with Diana, and had multiple strange occurrences while she was pregnant with her. The main one being that, at around 6 months along in the pregnancy, our mom walked into her bathroom to find the box holding her wedding dress on the floor. That box had been in the attic since we had moved into that house. No one in the house knew how it got there. Mom starting having contractions just after that incident, and started bleeding. Dad took her to the ER, and after a day of her being in intensive care and having multiple tests done, my parents discovered that Diana has DIS. After Mom gets out of the hospital, she sits me and my older sisters down to talk to us about this, telling us that Diana will have an abnormality, her words, and explains to us that she will be different than normal kids. I remember very clearly that everyone but me was crying. I remember saying something along the lines of, "But none of us are normal." Mind you, I was 12 and for sure my family is not very normal. Fast forward, Diana is born premature. I believe she was born at 7 months, but could be off a bit, has a ton of medical issues and has to have surgery immediately after being born. She was in NICU for the first 2 months of her life. We finally get to bring her home after she recovers. She was the tiniest little thing. By the time Diana was about 6 months old, my parents started doing physical and speech therapy with her, because she wasn't developing the way a normal baby would have been by that age, I guess. I remember we were learning sign language with her until she was about 2 years because my mom was afraid she wouldn't be verbal. Mom couldn't have been more wrong. Diana started babbling by about 8 months, and she'd always just lay flat on her back and talk to the ceiling, and just giggle like someone was playing with her. Mom always joked that Diana was talking to angels. Fast forward again to when Diana is about 3 or 4 years old. My mom, Diana, and myself are at a little Christmas party at a place for physically and mentally disabled people, where Diana took classes and the rest of us volunteered. The 3 of us are sitting in these pews waiting for Santa Claus to come on stage, so all the kids can go have their photo taken with him. Out of nowhere, Diana stands up and runs away from my mom and me, into the crowd. We chase her, and she runs straight toward this older woman we had never met. Diana grabs the woman's leg and starts bawling. My mom and I are apologizing to the woman, saying we don't know what got into her. The woman looks down at Diana and asks her what's wrong. This is where it gets weird. Diana tells her, word for word, in the clearest way I had heard her speak, "I'm so sorry that your mommy left you." The woman starts tearing up, and tells us that her mother had passed away a couple nights prior after a long battle with cancer. The second time Diana freaked us out, I was visiting with my mom and Diana when she was about 10. Diana starts telling me how she talks to Grandpa all the time. He passed away when she was about 5, and starts telling me that she met Grandpa's wife. Grandpa's wife, our step-grandmother, was still alive at this point, and that's the only grandma Diana ever knew, so I tell her, "Of course you've met Grandma." She corrects me and says, "No, Mommy's mommy." My mom and I both froze. Our mom's mom passed away when our mom was pregnant with my older sister, meaning none of us had ever met her. So our mom starts asking Diana questions about Grandma. She asks what color was my mommy's hair, and Diana responds yellow, but not real. Mom goes on to explain to me that Grandma wore wigs because she had been balding after years of battling anorexia, and she's always wear big blonde wigs. So, Mom asks Diana, "Do you know Grandma's name?" She says Jeannie, which was in fact our grandmother's name. Diana had never heard about Jeannie. It's a very sore subject to bring up around our mom, so none of us really know much about her. There have been so many other instances of her just knowing things. Like when I was in a very abusive relationship, that none of my family knew about, and she once called me in the middle of the night, crying hysterically that I needed to leave my house and come home. After that phone call, my fiancé came home drunk and beat the living shit out of me. I left him after that, and honestly can't say I would have had the strength to leave had it not been for that call from my little sister. Even to this day, she says she talks to grandma, grandpa, and other people who have passed away. Sorry this post was so incredibly long. I felt I couldn't just tell random stories about her, the backstories are important to the entire thing. A parallel life, awoken by a lamp throwaway account cause this is really personal. My last semester at a certain college I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. Note he was 325 pounds, I was 120 pounds, while unconscious on the ground I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady, she made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years we got married and almost immediately she bore me a daughter. I had a great job and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. When my daughter was 2, my wife, bore me a son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left for work and doted on him and my daughter. One day while sitting on the couch I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, like inverted. It was still in 3D but just wrong. It was a square lamp base, red with gold trim on 4 legs and a white square shade. I was transfixed, I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it. The next morning I didn't go to work, something was just not right about that lamp. I stopped eating, I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first, soon I stopped that too as I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at the fucking lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried. She had someone come and try to talk to me. By this time my cognizance was breaking up and my wife was freaking out. She took the kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp is not real. The house is not real, my wife, my kids. None of that is real. The last 10 years of my life are not fucking real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper, it was still inverted dimensions, it took up my entire perspective and all I could see was red. I heard voices, screams, all kinds of weird noises and I became aware of pain. A fucking shit ton of pain. The first words I said were I'm missing teeth and opened my eyes. I was laying on my back on the sidewalk surrounded by people that I didn't know, lots were freaking out, I was completely confused. At some point a cop scooped me up, dragged/walked me across the sidewalk and grass and threw me face down in the back of a cop car. I was still confused. I was taken to the hospital by the cop. Seems he didn't want to wait for the ambulance to arrive and give CT scans and shit. I went through about 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never existed. I was scared that I was going insane as I would cry myself to sleep hoping I would see her in my dreams. I never have, but sometimes I see my son, usually just a glimpse out of my peripheral vision. He is perpetually 5 years old and I can never hear what he says. Edit, 24 hours after post. Never though anyone would read this, I changed a line so that it no longer seems that my 2-year-old daughter bore a child. I have never seen Inception or the Star Trek episode so many have mentioned, but I will eventually. I will not do an AMA. I've had many PMs describing similar experiences and 3 posters stating such experiences are impossible. I'd say more research needs to be done on brain functions. Pre-med students, don't assume you know everything. A few have asked if they can write a book/screenplay/stage play/rage comic etc. Please consider this tale open source and have fun with it. I'm still shitting my pants over this. About 30 seconds ago I was sitting on the couch, as my dog walked by to go sit on her bed. We have behind the L part of the sectional. She had something small caught in her throat last night, I think a popcorn shell, so I was paying attention to her breathing just to make sure she got it out. For a few minutes she was breathing fine, and then what sounded like a light snore started happening. This is semi-normal for her depending on what position she's laying in, so I didn't bother to go over and check on her. That went on for about 5 minutes, until the most disgusting and to my now realization, terrifying, snore/cough/wheezing sound started happening. I go over to her to make sure she's okay, and the exact moment I looked at her bed the sound stopped mid-breath and she wasn't there. She was outside with my parents, had been for around 30 minuets. There's no way to get out of the room without walking right past me. I don't know whose fucking dog I saw, and what was making that creepy ass sound 5 feet away from me, but I'm going to be staying outside for the rest of the day and hiring an exorcist edit. I appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day to comment, although I don't think I'll be able to sleep again for the same reason. Mom died years ago. Dad got a phone call from her. My mom died 13 years ago. About 4 years ago my dad was on vacation in Arizona with his girlfriend. He said he was up watching TV and the hotel phone rang. He answered it and said it was my mom's voice saying I'm okay. He said Cass? And he said the phone was crackly and said tell Heather, me, I am okay. He said his girlfriend was confused why the phone ring. He immediately called me even though it was late and he was crying. My dad doesn't believe in the supernatural but still to this day can't explain that call. Be sure to subscribe so that more relaxing and interesting Reddit videos will show up in your feed. Thanks for watching, enjoyed the rest of the video. Met a random girl who shares an exact memory and situation. I have to make this brief. My older brother died in 2000. Prior to this he once was driving me in his Jeep when I was about 10 years old. In the Jeep he had the Song 2 by Blur playing in his car and he was dancing while driving, waving his arm saying Wahoo. I've kept this memory alive by having my license plate as Wahoo. Today I met a random stranger at a hockey game. The hockey game happens to play the same song and this girl turned to me and said my older brother played this one in his Jeep. I was completely confused and thought I heard wrong at first and said say that again. I didn't quite hear you, and she literally repeated it again. She then went on to explain her brother died in 2000 and I asked her what her license plate said and she said that it says Wahoo and she's from New Hampshire. What are the odds this would happen? Me and my daughter witnessed something surreal and unexplainable today. For a few weeks before this, while out driving, I've observed pedestrians standing at the traffic lights who will reach into their pockets and look at their phone as they're walking across the road when the light goes green. Nothing significant or strange about this, just one of those mundane things you notice while going about your day. Today I was driving with my daughter and we stopped at a red light at a crossing and there was a man standing there. Nothing out of the ordinary, denim jacket, black cap, glasses, around 6'2". I thought I'd try to weird out my young daughter, she's 5, so I knew I was going to blow her damn mind, so I said see that man? When the walking man goes green and he starts to walk across, he'll reach into his pocket and pull out his phone and start looking at it. Watch and see. As he walks across, he reaches into his pocket but then immediately takes his hand out and looks and points right at me with his mouth open smiling, like a gotcha stance. Of course my daughter found this absolutely hilarious and I sat there completely mind blown. I must have sat there in silence looking at him walk across for the next 10 seconds. I drove on and had a look at him as I drove past and he was smirking/laughing. I've been playing it through my head all day. The windows were up. The radio was on. I wasn't shouting. My voice was not even remotely raised. He must have been about 15 to 20 feet away from me. I can't figure out at all how he could have heard me. It's literally impossible. How did he know I was trying to predict he'd reach into his pocket for his phone? The only even remote possibility I can think of is that he has had the same observation as me and thought I might be thinking the same thing, so just went for it. But realistically, what are even the chances of this? Something is wrong with my girlfriend. Me, M26, and my girlfriend, F25, have been living together in an apartment for 2.5 years. Everything has been normal until quarantine started, around 4 weeks ago, when I started noticing some odd things. For instance, for the last 3 weeks or so, my GF has been putting sugar in her morning coffee, while throughout our entire relationship she's always been very much against it. It may seem like a small detail, but she's always been complaining about how I don't know what real coffee is since I put quite a lot of sugar. On the first day that I saw her drinking coffee with sugar, I asked her why would she do that, and she looked at me weirded out and said something like, "What are you talking about? I've always been putting sugar in my coffee." I felt a bit confused for a moment, but then we started talking about some other things, so I didn't think any more about it until the morning after, when she did the exactly same thing, and had once again the same reaction. Fast forward a few days and another odd thing happened. We were having sex and she suddenly suggested a sex pose that we had already tried once, but it had gone wrong and it hurt her a lot, so we had simply decided not to try it anymore. Naturally, I was very surprised with her suggestion, and reminded her about the time when it went wrong, and she just completely dismissed it, saying that I'd probably mixed her up with some ex-girlfriend or that I was just tripping. We then did the pose and we actually enjoyed it. Today, the weirdest thing happened, which is the reason I'm writing this post. In the afternoon, I was working at home. I'm employed as a PhD student at the computer science department of a university, when my GF asked me what's up with a guy who I've never heard of before. I asked her who is she referring to, and she said, "Well, it's that colleague of yours who you always talk about, the one from the company where you are employed at." I froze, and asked her to repeat, and she said the exactly same thing all over again. Then I told her that I don't work at any company, nor have I ever worked at any company, since I started a PhD straight after my master degree. At this point, she also completely froze and we were just staring at each other completely confused and shocked for a few moments. She then asked me WTF is going on, and I reminded her about the coffee thing and about the sex pose and that I don't know anymore what is going on. At this point, she started crying too and asked what is wrong with us. Nor she, nor me, nor anyone in both families have ever had any mental problems in the past. We don't know what to do about this. Can anyone explain what's wrong with us? Edit. Thanks everyone for your immense help and concern, you people are wonderful. We talked to the landlord about this problem and she will help us with getting a detector and checking the carbon monoxide level in the apartment. Also, even though we do regular medical checkups, we will have another one soon. Hopefully it will not take too long due to COVID-19. We will probably also go see a psychiatrist and a psychologist. Thanks once again for your help. I was someone's glitch in the matrix. I went out, parked in front of a store, bought a 6-pack of water and went to register NR2, paid with change. Half an hour later, I remembered I wouldn't be going out anytime soon again, so I decided to buy more water, and everything happened in the exact same order. I parked at the same spot, entered, bought a 6-pack, register 2 is free, same girl working there, I even paid with same amount of change coins. She looked at me with a bit of horror and confusion but couldn't see me smiling under my mask. Edit. First, thank you for gold and silver, dear editors. Second, I had no idea this small story of mine would blow up like this. It made my day and hopefully yours too. I died last night. But I'm still here. So this actually happened last week. It just took me some time to come to terms with it. I got a phone call from my next door neighbor late in the evening asking if I can help him move a mattress into his upstairs. His mom is ill and has a big heavy sleep number bed. I of course ran over to help because they're great neighbors. I get over there and his friend, who is also a priest, was there to help. I helped them figure out how to separate the mattress from the bed so we could fit it upstairs. We get it all moved up and back in place when my neighbor asks if I can help them move an armoire upstairs too. I think nothing of it and we pull it out of his travel trailer and start bringing it up the front stairs of his house. This is where I died. The front stairs are 11 steps. I was on the lower end of the armoire about 6 steps up when my neighbor and his friend lose a handle on the armoire and it comes crashing down on me and I fall backwards towards the pavement. I then wake up in my dining room to my phone ringing and my wife asking me if I'm going to answer the phone. It's my neighbor asking me if I can help move a bed upstairs for his mom. I go over there and meet his priest friend again, as this has been the first time I met him. I say I can help with the bed but I cannot help with the armoire. My neighbor was like, how do you know about the armoire? I then proceeded to tell them I'm pretty sure I just died. I spent the next hour talking with the priest. He had so many questions. My neighbor didn't believe it until I described the upstairs bedroom in perfect detail down to the metal mattress frame on the floor and the intricate headboard leaning against the wall, and I had never been upstairs in their house before. The priest asked me what I saw after I died. I told him I never actually died. Before it happened I woke up at my dining room table. TLDR. I experienced my death but woke up alive about 20 minutes earlier in my life. Thank you all for the awards. I never expected this post to blow up. I've been trying my best to follow the comments and post answers to questions or clarify statements. My 5-year-old son broke character and talked to me like an adult. This happened about 2 years ago and I was so blown away I took notes and told my wife about it, so I still have the notes on my phone. My 5-year-old son was pretty typical for his age, always goofing around, never serious, always working some angle to negotiate treats or buying whatever thing was at the top of his list this week. Kids have a selfish worldview and that's mostly understandable because they haven't matured yet. So when my son asked me to go for a walk, just the two of us, I immediately laughed and thought, okay, what's he going to ask for? We start walking and I ask, what's on your mind, buddy? He said, nothing really, I just want to have some time to be with you and be peaceful and be out in nature. Wow, okay, this is progress, I thought. Then he said, I want you to know you're the best dad I've ever had. You really do help me and my sister a lot and you're really very nice, even though we don't usually tell you. So I just wanted to say thank you for everything and that I want to be near you always. By this point, the only reason I wasn't completely crying my eyes out is that I thought it was some kind of a joke or lead up to ask for something. This was totally out of character, especially at this age. I managed to croak out something like, I'm really glad to hear that and I love you very much. Then we just enjoyed the rest of the walk. It really felt like for a moment I was speaking to a soul who has had several lives. You're the best dad I've ever had, and wanted to speak directly to me instead of play the role of a child. I'm so glad it happened and it's something I will never forget. Later he went right back to being the same old goofy kid that I love.